My name's Becca Tan, this is MakingLARP, and today I'm going to give you my hot knots of the Summer Moot 2014. So this year the Summer Moot was based on the Dragon's Land on an area called Dragon's Eye. So I'm going to start with the kind of knots of the event. The big one for me is that because of transport issues, the person that drives us down had to stay at work till later. We didn't get on site till 9 o'clock. Timing happened at 7 and all the faction had just got back from doing our monster slot. Apparently that went really well and the faction got a lot of praise for quite a few people turning up and doing it, but we missed the main monster slot and we missed a good few hours of time in where a lot of stuff had actually happened. By the time we'd timed in, we'd actually lost at least one character. I believe there'd probably been about 10 deaths already over the field as the faction had killed quite a few whilst playing monsters. Speaking on character death, one of the big knots for us as faction is that this weekend we lost 8 characters. Really unluckily, 2 of them were played by the same person, so really sorry goddess. Hopefully that means you'll have plenty of time to think of a new one. So yeah, we lost I think 4 over the first night and 4 in the final battle. It might have been 4 over the course of the rest of the weekend, but there was definitely 4 at the final battle. I have to say there weren't any of them that I was particularly close to in character, but quite a few that were people that I'm friends with out of character, so that was kind of sucky. And a couple of them were relatively high up. Marinus was one of the most powerful mages in the faction and he got petrified. Whilst most of us were either in or watching a faction ritual, the count got rolled and about 4 people got petrified, and unfortunately one of those people didn't get saved. I don't know whether to put it as a hot or not, but this was the weekend of petrification. Out of character, that made the event really scary and it made it feel quite intense, but in character it's a major power drain to fix people and it was a major killer. I think of those that died over the course of the weekend in the Lions, I think 4 or possibly 5 of them died from petrification. Petrification, for those that don't know, is where you are turned to stone. So it was quite interesting hearing the chant that the dragons had taken up, which is bolder, I suppose, call rather than chant, which let everyone know that someone has been petrified. The way of curing it is 10 counter spells, then a healer, so I'm not able to do it, it needs to be an actual healer, it needs to remove fatal wound from that person's chest, and if you do it to any other location it doesn't work. And then they need to be healed from every location because they're then bleeding out. So it's pretty scary in and of itself, and there were advanced forms of petrification going on. So the deaths and the scary petrification were the big knots. The other big knot for me was it was a very short event. I think it was the only one this year that wasn't 4 days. So by the time we got there on a Friday night, we were already a little bit late, so we missed a couple of hours of time in. So we had the rest of Friday night, all of Saturday, and till I think about 4 o'clock on Sunday afternoon. So it just felt shorter. There was loads of stuff that I meant to get done and just didn't. Just didn't. By the time I'd stopped for an hour to actually rest my feet and have some food and things like that, the time window to do things just passed. So that was an issue that I struggled with all event, just constantly feeling like I just wasn't getting anything done. On the ancestor bothering front, that mostly is a list of things that I need to do and just didn't. I just did not have the time. We've kind of got stuff that may have to be dealt with between events, but I hate doing that. Because technically we don't have downtime, but we do have a lay system. So I'm going to probably have to start off a discussion on there, then wait at least a day once we're in timing at the gathering in order to give people that missed the message a chance to give feedback as well. So I'll go a little more detail about the specific situation. I can't remember if I mentioned it before, but last year we were all given saplings from the Tree of Incantation. Each faction was given a sapling, and where we planted it, a grove of trees is now forming. And we've been asked by the Guild of Incanters to decide within the faction who our major ancestors are, because we can probably get about 6 to 12 of them actively linked with the grove, which would be a really useful tool. It means we can do lots of things like going to look at the grove and getting a reflection of how that ancestor is doing. So if we look at a tree that we know is linked with a certain ancestor, and it turns out that that tree is got some, I don't know, nasty plant infestation, then we know that something's wrong with that ancestor. So it'll be a really useful tool. There's some other information we'll be able to find out as well. For example, it's at least common theory that certain ancestors are basically going around to different groups or factions because they do such a similar job that they're basically the same ancestor wearing a different funny nose, and so the power's actually going to the same place. Well, if that's the case, then we will know, because they'll, if we apply to have 2 ancestors put in the grove and there's only a tree for one of them, then it will give us a good indication that that's actually just one ancestor being worshipped slightly differently. And so lots of cool, interesting things like that. So it's a really useful tool that we're going to have. However, that means as a faction, we have to decide who our major ancestors are. Now, given that before we even get started on the other ancestors, there are 14 Draken, which are the ancestral embodiments of the islands we live on, one of which my character is actually linked to as Cyrene. That's going to be a hard choice of narrowing down, and it's probably a long and intense discussion that needs to happen, and unfortunately I don't know when we're going to have the time to do it on the field. The other big knot of the weekend was the weather. It was an odd weekend. There was flash showers, really quite a lot of mud to start with, intermixed with burning heat. There was quite big winds at one point, especially as it was time to take down tents and things like that. And so it was just kind of a mixed weekend. So for the course of less than 3 days, I went from having to go out and buy a new set of in-character wellies, which, lovely, the Asda sells wellies with buckles and stuff that looked in character, and I managed to get them for £8 instead of 18. That was great, but they did not fit me very well, and so I ended up with welts at the top of my legs where the top was too tight. I had to cut them open, and I had bits where any skin was free, and the wellies just completely stuck to my foot because they're plastic, and that was really painful. And so you'd go from wearing that because it's muddy to wearing little plimsoll sandal things because it was boiling hot and you didn't want to stick your feet in plastic, and it was just, could not decide what it was doing. Even when it was raining, it was still warm. I think I only put my jumper on a little bit of Saturday night, and that was the only time I got properly cold, whereas normally we're having to put layers and layers and layers on. Other than that, I can't think of many knots. Someone's got to do it, but we were one of the furthest back camps on our side of the field. Luckily we didn't really have too much issues, but it just meant I only went to the other field once. Supported someone to go to the Vipers, and we just didn't see anyone else. Which, given that in character our prince is married to someone in the Jackals, and they really help us with a lot of our living problems and things like that, and they were the far side of the other field, that was a bit of a trek for those people, I'm sure. But we are, as the Lions and the Jackals, co-hosting the next event, so I'm sure we'll be camped somewhere near each other. Oh, yeah, that's a knot. Doesn't matter, not of this event, but next event is going to be, oh, it's going to be so bad. The gathering is being hosted very, very near to a place called Alcafar. We've had people reminding us, never say you're going to Alcafar when you're transporting. We're going to a town or a village nearby called Sunset. Alcafar is this terrible, terrible unliving city. It is nasty and horrible and so corrupted that if you were to accidentally transport into Alcafar, you would die instantly and then be raised as unliving. And we are already going, right, drill into everybody's head, you are going to Sunset, because if you mess that up, you will die. There was a few bits and pieces of plot related to that, obviously, as we're building up to the big event of the year. That'll all go in the HOTS. So let's start on them. As I mentioned, hotel, big and clever. It's amazing what a difference proper sleep in a proper bed makes. It's not something I think would be viable or affordable to do every event, but as a one-off option, I think it really helped us out. And the ability to have a shower and all that kind of stuff. I know there are showers on site, but I'm so scared of all the horror stories that I'm just never going to have them. So it just makes you feel that bit nicer when you've not got 3 days worth of mud and crud on you as well. Other HOTS. I love Will, the guy who played Marinus's new character. It's a little bit creepy. I don't know too much details. I've not had a chance to properly speak to him. I just love the look and the idea and the bits which we've been told. I believe he's a member of the Ritzspar, which are, I don't even know what they are. I know they're fire-based, and we've been told not to touch him, and he wears leather gloves so that he doesn't accidentally burn people, and all kind of fun things like that. So it'll be interesting to see how that play out, and I do really want to learn more about the race he's playing, and this is a great opportunity to learn about it in character. Probably mildly upset Foz with this following hot, but it was just so hilarious that it has to. Foz is a member of the plot team, and he'd retired his previous character and brought a new one in this event, and his new character was a very gobby pirate, and there are a bunch of hunters going around, I believe there's a monster roll, and trying to find people that are sliding specials, which is vampires, warlocks, were creatures and paladins. And he turned around and said that he was all of them, as gobby people are wont to do. And so they dragged him off, even though the rest of the faction was going, no, seriously, he's not any of them. And they're like, we said he is and we got checked, so we're going to drag him off. So I think his character lasted a day, if that. But it was kind of funny that that's how he died. I loved being part of all the rituals this weekend. I only was actively in one ritual, but I think I actually saw all but one of them that was so early in the morning on Saturday that it was actually before we got on site. And I think we were there at 10:30, so it must have been started sometime between 10 and 5:30. There was, I think, 6 rituals, at least 5 lines rituals over the course of the weekend, between the ones that the faction actually had, and we'd won one in the Rich List lottery, and that ended up being 4 on the Saturday, and I think I got to see 3 of them, and was in the one on the Friday. I actually kind of love contributing to rituals, and I'm probably going to take the ability to contribute to a second ritual each day when I get round to pre-booking for next year. And my favourite of the rituals of the weekend was the Human Awakening one, because I'm now an awakened human, and it's great and I love it. I love it so much. I don't know if it's the freedom of being an awakened human now and having improved Ritual of Peace, which is the skill that I bought this year. I'm sure I've explained it in one of my previous videos, possibly the glossary, but being awakened for each race is basically a lore sheet that gives you access to special skills that you can then buy normally as you would other skills. And one of the ones on the human sheet was not actually the one I want the most, but was the one that was going to be most useful to me. is improved ritual of peace, which basically means unless someone goes out of their way to poison me or otherwise corrupt my pattern, nothing will kill me whilst I'm at a gala event. I mean, obviously, as I mentioned, petrification, that'd still kill you. There's plenty of things, but a lot of the major stuff that would normally go about won't kill me. It'll just knock me unconscious. And obviously, once I'm unconscious, if someone has the knowledge to then do something that will kill me, I'm going to be unconscious, I can't do anything about it. But it just takes off some of that fear, which is a lot of what stops me getting involved in combat, because I'm so squishy. And actually for the final battle, I didn't even get my axe out, and I actually felt more comfortable and confident not having a weapon in my hand and just running around with both my hands free in order to scan people and start healing them if I needed to. That I actually felt loads better about it, and I'm probably going to do that in future. I might just get rid of my axe completely, or maybe go buy a little throwing axe or something. And so I've kind of got something to defend myself, or to use as a surgery tool maybe if I pick that up next year as well, but not to the level where I'm going to be getting out to fight people. So that was one of my huts. I've actually kind of found a place where I'm much happy with the character. We also seem to have found a nice balance with the company where we're starting to gel again. As much as I whine about it, I had a pretty decent time as High Encounter this weekend. As I mentioned, ancestor bothering with the groves, and that was kind of all I have to deal with. I did end up having quite an interesting chat with the Queen, who was being surprisingly nice to us all this weekend. I don't know what's happened. Maybe she's seen the videos and decided she's going to make friends with the company. I don't know. She was amazing this weekend and really nice to all of us, and didn't give off any of the vibes we normally get, where like with the scum underneath her shoe, which was a vast improvement and really helped relax everyone after the angst and whining fest that was Lions politics at the GEF. But yeah, so it was myself, Elsbeth the High Arcane, the Queen, and some followers of White Reaver, who is generally known as Incantabane, because he and his brother, it's hard to describe, they're a twinned pair of swords, and one's job is to go around killing all the unliving, and the other is friends with the unliving. But he's a sword, but also an ancestor, and he'd been working for one of the three sides in the big unliving fight. There's a war going on the plane of unlife, which is why we're having to go to Alcafar, because it's spilling out into this world, and that's bad times. And he had been forced into working for Dracos, one of the two main sides, and now is apparently free and building up his followers again, and is just a sword but has a guy that's his voice that is doing the reasonable things that a sword can't think of doing. The main issue with White Reaver, and the reason he's called Incantabane, is because as a sword he would spontaneously appear, generally in light encounters' hands, and they would be compelled and have no option but to go and fight the nearest unliving they could find. Or sometimes he would go in their hand and then teleport them somewhere to fight an unliving, and he didn't care that whether you lived or died. He was a sword, his job was to stab up unliving. Doesn't matter if he teleported you in a room that was underwater and you would drown. Doesn't matter to him, his job was to kill unliving. And so he actually had a worse reputation than Dark Reaver, his pro-unliving counterpart, because he got more light encounters killed. And so even though the Lions are the goodest of the good factions, we don't really like him either, because he keeps getting people killed. And apparently he's promised to stop doing that, and he's trying to make amends and generally get the Lions involved in the extermination of all unliving, which we're like, yeah, we're cool with that, but we're not going to just do it your way. We're going to do it sensibly if it needs to be done. We kind of think it needs to be done only if it can be done in a way that doesn't hurt Adrea and things like that. So I've kind of been put in charge of organising that research. I have submitted one research request ever, so how much I'll be organising and how much we're going, oh, Thea, I don't know, because she's a high bard and research expert. Other little hots mostly involve fun things that were kind of mostly out of character. Someone had given our faction's cowkin a Dairy Lee rapping cow thing that played a random song, and it was like meow, 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 and it was like activated and a lot more impressive than what I'm saying, but it was like being played constantly anytime she was in the room, and all the jokes just ridiculousness. I believe at one point there was I don't know how legitimate, but there was a plan in place to get her the ability to regenerate so that they could turn her into a barbecue and just, carve off your own steaks, possibly something to make barbecue sauce come out of her udders. That level of just stupidity, and it just built and built and built. Arya, who is a healer within the company, she got lots of props for trying to save Marinus, even though it was too late, and just not giving up. And Freya for helping rescue the Queen in the final fight. Actually was recognised enough that she was given the Faction Champion award, which is a ritual slot. The faction actually divvies up most of the ritual slots at the gathering, so like the military get one, the gate guard have a lottery for people that have been on the gate, contributors have a lottery, everyone that's contributed to a ritual that year. So various people get a ritual, but Freya from the company got awarded the Faction Champion one. She hasn't decided what she's doing with it yet, but that should be quite interesting. And I almost guarantee Hadari's going to be doing the ritual and the rest of the company are going to be in it contributing. And it was nice as well. The military that normally get one, they actually gave up their ritual slot this year and have given it to the ritual team. As a minor point, I'm really hoping the ritual team use that ritual to power up Lenny and Leo, which are a unique faction item that we have. They're two cuddly toy lions, and they're each worth 2 contributors in a ritual, and actually got to hold them in the 2 rituals that I did this weekend. I just love them, and I think they're something that most of Action really love, and are actually quite useful. They're the sort of item that doesn't get made anymore, so unless we do the effort of empowering them, they probably won't be powered ever again, and we would probably never be able to make anything like them. So yeah, I'm really hoping that's what they just do, but I don't have any sway of that decision. I have to say, when they were pulling out the names for the contributor lottery, I knew instantly that that's what I was doing with the slot if I got it, because I'd already been awakened that weekend. We'll have to see. To be honest, I'm fully expecting just everyone to die at Alcafar, so I don't know how important it is. It's going to be bad. Well, I think I've rambled on enough. There are probably a million other awesome things that happened that I just can't remember. But I got to say, I would give the Moot 7 out of 10. I think if it had an extra day, it would have been really great. But it just felt so short that it's difficult to judge. If I don't see you before, I will see you after the gathering with my report from then. Bye! It's got all these cool drawings on the inside. It's been customised. It's my hot knots of the Great Trade Fair 2014.